Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, I'm so glad you stopped by. Today I'm sharing my top favorite flowers to grow in containers. Whether you've got a small balcony, a front porch, or just a sunny windowsill, these flowers will bring life, color, and beauty to your space. Container gardening is such a joy. You can move things around, mix and match plants, and even grow a full garden without a yard. And flowers? They're the easiest way to add instant charm. Let me take you through 10 flowers that are perfect for pots and planters, ones I've grown myself and truly love. Let's start with petunias. Honestly, I don't think a container garden feels complete without them. If you're new to gardening or even if you've been doing it for years, petunias are one of those flowers that just work. They're colorful, reliable, and they bloom like crazy from spring right through fall. One of the best things about petunias is the variety. You can find them in almost every color: deep purple, soft pink, bright red, even white, yellow, and stripes. Some are solid colored, some have ruffled edges, and some have these gorgeous little speckles that almost look like stars. There are even wave petunias that trail beautifully over the sides of pots, which looks stunning in hanging baskets or window boxes. They love the sun, like really love it. If you've got a spot that gets at least 6 hours of direct sunlight a day, that's ideal for petunias. Less sun and they'll still grow, but you probably won't get that full, lush bloom they're known for. I always put mine in spots that get morning and early afternoon sun, and they just keep going. Now, a lot of people plant petunias as little starts from the nursery, but you can actually grow them from seed too. It takes a bit of patience. They're tiny and delicate when they sprout, but it's totally doable. That said, for quick results, picking up a flat of starter plants from your local garden center is usually the easiest way to get started. When it comes to soil, petunias aren't super picky, but they do want it to drain well. If you're using a regular potting mix, you might want to add a little perlite or coarse sand to keep these airy. And don't forget drainage holes. Petunias don't like wet feet. If their roots stay too wet for too long, they can get root rot, which just stops their growth altogether. Watering is key. In the heat of summer, especially if they're in a smaller pot, you might have to water them every day. But try not to keep the soil soggy. Let the top inch dry out a little between waterings. Also, petunias are heavy feeders. I give mine a dose of liquid fertilizer about once every 2 weeks, and you can really tell the difference in how they bloom. One little maintenance tip: deadheading. That means pinching off the old faded flowers. It keeps the plant tidy and encourages it to make more blooms instead of going to seed. Some of the newer varieties don't need as much deadheading, but for most petunias, a quick snip every few days will keep them looking fresh. Something I like to do mid-season, especially if my petunias start getting long and leggy, is give them a haircut. Just trim them back by about a third. It looks a little rough at first, but within a week or two, they fill out beautifully and start blooming even more. What I love most about petunias is how versatile they are. You can grow them in hanging baskets, large pots, railing planters, even window boxes. I've even tucked them into the edges of my vegetable containers just for a splash of color. They're easy to mix with other flowers too. Think about pairing them with something upright like geraniums or a trailing plant like sweet potato vine for that lush, overflowing look. All in all, if you want a low-maintenance, high-impact flower that'll bloom its heart out all season long, petunias are it. Geraniums, one of the most classic and reliable flowers you can grow in containers. I've been growing these since I was a kid. Literally, my first 4-H plant was a geranium. And even now, they're still one of my favorites because they're just so easy to grow and they bloom like crazy. Geraniums love the sun. They do best in full sun to partial shade, and the more light they get, the more blooms you'll see. You'll find them in just about every color: red, pink, white, purple, even some that are bicolored. Their flowers grow in little clusters that pop up above the leaves, and those leaves have a lovely scent when you brush past them. Some people say it smells a little citrusy or like herbs. What makes geraniums especially great for container gardening is how tough they are. They can handle heat, They don't mind drying out between waterings, and they keep going all season if you take care of them. I always plant mine in well-draining soil, and I let the top inch dry out before watering again. If they get too soggy, the roots can rot, so drainage is really important. Now here's my favorite thing about geraniums. You can bring them indoors in the winter. When the weather starts to cool down, I take mine out of their containers, trim them back a bit, and keep them inside near a sunny window. Then in spring, I refresh the soil, maybe take a few cuttings, and out they go again. Some of my geraniums have been with me for years. If you keep up with a little deadheading, just pinch off the faded flowers, they'll keep producing new blooms for months. I also feed them every couple of weeks with the balanced liquid fertilizer to keep them going strong. So if you want a long-lasting, colorful, and super low-maintenance flower for your pots, geraniums are a great choice. They're cheerful, easy to grow, and honestly, they're one of those flowers you'll keep planting year after year. If you're looking for a flower that brings instant charm and color, especially in cooler weather, pansies are a perfect choice for container gardening. They're sweet, cheerful little blooms that honestly look like they have faces. And they come in so many beautiful shades: purples, yellows, blues, whites, even multicolored petals that almost look like they've been painted. What's really great about pansies is that they're cool weather flowers. They thrive in early spring and fall when the weather is still a bit chilly. So if you're looking to extend your gardening season, pansies are your best friend. You can plant them when it's still too cold for other flowers, and they'll hold strong even through light frosts. They do best in partial sun to partial shade, especially in warmer climates. In cooler areas, they're happy with full sun. I usually plant them in window boxes or shallow pots with good drainage, and I try to keep the soil consistently moist, but not soggy. They don't like drying out completely, but they also don't want to sit in wet feet. One of my favorite varieties is the cool wave pansy. It has a trailing habit that spills beautifully over the sides of containers. If you've got a hanging basket or a raised pot, these are stunning. They keep blooming and blooming, especially if you keep up with deadheading. Just pinch off the spent blooms and new ones will take their place. Pansies don't need heavy feeding. A light fertilizer every few weeks is usually enough to keep them looking fresh. And you don't need a ton of plants either. Just a few can fill a pot and make it look full and vibrant. They're also surprisingly tough. You'd think such delicate-looking flowers would be fragile, but pansies can take a chill, and they'll bounce back from light frosts like it's nothing. So if you want a flower that adds a little magic to your early spring or fall containers, pansies are a wonderful choice. They're colorful, easy to grow, and they bring such a cozy, welcoming feel to your space. Zinnias are like little fireworks in your garden, bright, bold, and bursting with color. If you want a flower that makes an impact and absolutely loves the sun, zinnias are the way to go. They're one of the easiest flowers to grow in containers, and they're super rewarding too. One of the things I love about zinnias is how many shapes and sizes there are. You've got the classic daisy-style blooms, pom-pom types, and even varieties that look a little like dahlias. The colors are stunning: hot pinks, oranges, reds, yellows, even lime green. You can mix them all together and they somehow never clash. It's like confetti in a pot. Zinnias are sun lovers, so make sure to place your container somewhere they get at least 6 hours of direct sunlight a day. The more sun, the better the blooms. I always grow mine in medium to large containers because they like a bit of root space. And don't forget to use a pot with good drainage because they won't tolerate soggy soil. Now here's something cool. Zinnias are perfect for starting from seed. Just sow them directly into the pot once it's warm outside, keep the soil moist for the first couple of weeks, and they'll shoot up pretty quickly. Within a few weeks, you'll have thick green stems, and not long after that, the flowers start coming in. They don't need a lot of fuss. Water when the top inch of soil feels dry, and I like to feed them with the balanced liquid fertilizer every couple of weeks to keep the flowers going strong. If you deadhead, which just means removing the faded blooms, they'll keep pushing out new flowers until fall. And one last thing, zinnias are fantastic cut flowers. So if you want to bring a little bit of your container garden indoors, snip a few and pop them in a vase. They last a surprisingly long time and brighten up any room. If you're looking for a sunny, cheerful flower that's almost impossible to mess up, zinnias are definitely it. They're bold, they're bright, and they bring tons of life to any container space. Begonias are one of those flowers that quietly steal the show in container gardens, especially if you don't have a lot of sunlight to work with. They absolutely thrive in shade or partial shade, which makes them perfect for porches, patios, or balconies that only get morning sun or filtered light throughout the day. What I love most about begonias is how many types there are, each with its own personality. You've got wax begonias, which are small, tidy plants with glossy leaves and simple pink, red, or white flowers. They're great for small pots or even as a border around larger container arrangements. Then there are the tuberous begonias, which are a little more dramatic. Their blooms are fuller, kind of like roses, and they come in vibrant colors like coral, orange, yellow, and deep pink. These are perfect for hanging baskets or statement pots where you really want that wow factor. And let's not forget about the Rex begonias, which are mostly grown for their amazing foliage. Their leaves come in wild patterns and colors, purples, silvers, greens with swirls and stripes, and they look stunning even when they're not blooming. Now, with begonias, drainage is super important. They absolutely hate sitting in wet soil. So make sure your pot has holes, and if your potting mix feels heavy, add a bit of perlite or sand to help keep things loose and airy. I usually water when the top inch of soil feels dry, just enough to keep them happy without overdoing it. They're pretty low maintenance when it comes to feeding, too. A little liquid fertilizer once a month during the growing season is usually enough to keep them blooming. And for tuberous types, you can actually save the tubers at the end of the season and replant them next spring. So it's a gift that keeps on giving. If you've never tried begonias before, definitely give them a shot this year. They're perfect for those shady corners and they bring a soft, elegant vibe to any space. Now, I know what you're probably thinking, sunflowers in containers? But yes, you absolutely can grow sunflowers in pots. And it's actually one of the most rewarding things you can do. They're bold, they're bright, and they bring so much happiness to any garden space, even if it's just a small balcony or patio. The key is choosing the right variety. You don't want the giant 8-foot tall ones for containers. Instead, look for dwarf or compact sunflowers like teddy bear, little Becca, or sunspot. These varieties stay under 3 feet tall and do great in containers. Some are even small enough to grow in a 6-inch pot, though I usually go with a gallon-sized one for better root space. Sunflowers need full sun, at least 6 to 8 hours a day. Put them in the brightest spot you've got. They love the heat and they grow fast. I usually just plant the seeds directly into the container once the weather warms up. No need to start them indoors. They'll sprout in about a week and take off from there. Use a pot with good drainage and fill it with a loose, well-draining mix. Since they grow tall, make sure your pot is heavy enough or tucked in a corner where the wind won't knock it over. Once they start growing, I usually water them when the top couple inches of soil feel dry. Deep watering helps them develop strong roots. Now, sunflowers don't bloom for months like some other flowers. They're more of a one and done kind of deal. But they're totally worth it. Once that golden bloom opens up, it becomes the star of your whole garden. Bees and butterflies love them too, so they're great for pollinators. And the best part? If you leave the flower head to dry out, you can collect the seeds at the end of the season, or let the birds have a snack. Either way, they keep on giving. So yes, you can grow sunflowers in containers, and they're a simple, joyful way to bring sunshine to your garden space. Let's talk about one of my absolute favorite flowers to grow in containers, marigolds. There's just something about marigolds that makes a garden feel cheerful and grounded at the same time. They're bright, they're hardy, and they're honestly one of the easiest flowers you'll ever grow. Now, marigolds are more than just pretty faces. They're actually super useful in the garden. I plant them all around my vegetable beds and containers because they help repel pests. Things like aphids, nematodes, even mosquitoes. Marigolds have a natural scent that bugs don't like, but to us, it's kind of spicy and earthy and just smells like summer. It's like having natural bug control built right into your flower pot. There are a couple of types you'll see at nurseries or seed catalogs. The most common are French marigolds and African marigolds. French marigolds are smaller, bushier, and perfect for containers. African marigolds, on the other hand, get bigger, taller stems and big round blooms, almost like pom-poms. If you've got a larger pot or want something showy, African marigolds are the way to go. I always grow my marigolds from seed, every single year. And not only because they're easy, but because you can save the seeds yourself from the spent flowers. Just let the flowers dry out, pull them apart, and you'll find long, skinny seeds inside that look almost like little darts. Stick those in the soil next season, and you're all set. I've even tossed them into pots and let nature take its course. They'll sprout when they're ready. As for care, marigolds thrive in full sun. The more sunshine, the more blooms you'll get. They do fine in average potting soil, just make sure it drains well. I like to use lightweight containers with holes in the bottom, and if you're using a decorative ceramic pot, you can always pop a plastic grow pot inside so you don't lose drainage. Water-wise, marigolds are pretty forgiving. They can tolerate a bit of dryness, especially once they're established, but try to keep the soil evenly moist. Just don't let it get soggy. Too much water, and they'll start looking tired and droopy. In the middle of summer, you might need to water them every day if they're in smaller pots and in direct sun. One thing I've noticed is that marigolds don't love heavy feeding. If you're fertilizing other flowers in the same pot, they'll go along with it, but they really don't need much. In fact, too much fertilizer can lead to more leafy growth and fewer flowers. So go light on the feeding and let them do their thing. They also handle heat really well. When other flowers are wilting in the summer sun, marigolds are still standing proud. That makes them a go-to for sunny patios, balcony railings, and garden borders. What I love most about growing marigolds in containers is how they just keep going. They bloom fast, they fill in beautifully, and they place so nicely with other plants. You can mix them with herbs, veggies, or other annuals, and they don't mind sharing the space. And again, those colors, from golden yellow to deep orange and even rust red, marigolds bring that rich, warm glow that really makes a container garden pop. Sometimes I plant an entire pot with just marigolds in different shades, and it looks like a little bonfire of blooms. So if you want something that's vibrant, useful, and incredibly easy to grow, marigolds are one of the best flowers you can start with. I genuinely think every container garden has room for a few. If you've got a shady spot and you're wondering what flowers to plant there, impatiens are a total game changer. These are one of the best container flowers for full shade to partial shade, and they're perfect for brightening up those corners where the sun just doesn't reach much. Impatiens come in a beautiful range of colors: soft pinks, bright reds, purples, white, even coral tones, and they bloom nonstop from spring all the way through summer. Once they get going, they fill in like a soft, colorful blanket over your pot. I love planting them in round, shallow containers or window boxes where they can really spread out and show off. They're super easy to grow too. You just need to make sure their soil stays consistently moist but not soggy. Unlike sunflowers that like to dry out a bit between waterings, impatiens will let you know when they're thirsty. They wilt quickly, but thankfully, they bounce right back if you water them in time. They don't need full sun at all, and in fact, too much sun will stress them out and fade the colors. I usually keep mine on the north or east side of the house or under trees where they get filtered light. They really thrive in those cooler, softer light conditions. For soil, a good quality potting mix works just fine, but make sure your container has drainage holes. Even though they like moisture, they don't want to sit in water. I usually water mine once a day during the hot months, especially if they're in smaller pots that dry out fast. If you're growing impatiens in a container with other plants, just keep in mind they like things on the damp side, so they pair best with other moisture-loving shade plants like ferns or coleus. These are flowers that don't need much attention at all. I barely even fertilize them, maybe once a month with a gentle liquid feed, and they still perform beautifully. So if you're looking for a flower that thrives in the shade, fills out quickly, and gives you reliable color all season, impatiens are a wonderful choice. They're soft, lush, and just plain easy to love. If you want a flower that's colorful, edible, easy to grow, and just downright fun, nasturtiums are a must for your container garden. I plant these every single year, and they always surprise me with how quickly they grow and how bright and cheerful they look. What's great about nasturtiums is that they're super low maintenance, but they give back so much. Their flowers come in vibrant oranges, yellows, reds, even deep maroon, and they have these soft, round leaves that kind of look like lily pads. Everything about the plant has a whimsical cottage garden vibe. Now, here's the cool part. You can eat the flowers and leaves. The blooms have this light peppery taste, kind of like watercress. I love adding them to summer salads or as a garnish. They make your food look fancy without any extra effort. Nasturtiums do best in full sun, though they can handle a bit of light shade. But for the most flowers and best flavor, more sun is better. You'll want to use a container that drains well, but unlike some flowers, they don't need rich soil. In fact, if the soil is too rich, you'll get more leaves than flowers. So don't overdo it on fertilizer. They actually bloom more when you keep things simple. I usually start mine from seed right in the container, and within a week or so, they sprout. They grow fast, and depending on the type, they can either mound up in a pot or trail beautifully over the sides. I love using trailing varieties in hanging baskets or tall planters where the vines can spill out and cascade downward. Keep the soil evenly moist, but let the top layer dry slightly between waterings. They're fairly drought tolerant once they're established, but they'll bloom more consistently if they're not stressed. If you want a container flower that's bold, beautiful, edible, and fun to grow, nasturtiums check every box. And the best part? They look amazing without needing much at all from you. If you want a flower that's low maintenance, graceful, and just a little bit wild in the best way, cosmos are an amazing pick for container gardening. They have this soft, airy look, almost like little daisy fireworks on tall, wispy stems, and they just keep blooming. Cosmos come in colors like soft pink, white, lavender, and even deep reddish maroon. They look delicate, but don't let that fool you. They're actually super tough and really easy to grow. I always recommend them to beginner gardeners because once you plant them, they pretty much take care of themselves. They grow best in full sun and they love the heat. They actually prefer soil that's not too rich, which makes them perfect for containers. If you give them too much fertilizer, they'll grow tons of leaves but not many flowers. So when it comes to cosmos, less is more. You can start them from seed directly in the container. No need to fuss with seed trays of transplants. I usually sprinkle a few seeds into the pot once the weather is warm, and they pop up in about a week. From there, it's just water, sunshine, and a little patience. They'll start blooming in midsummer and go all the way into fall. And here's a little trick, deadheading. If you snip off the old flowers once they fade, the plant will keep sending up more blooms. Some gardeners even cut them back halfway through the season to encourage bushier growth and a second round of flowers. Cosmos grow tall, anywhere from 18 inches to 4 feet depending on the variety, so I like to use a tall, sturdy container or place them near a wall or trellis for support. Their lacy foliage and delicate flowers add such a nice contrast to fuller plants like zinnias or marigolds. And they're amazing for pollinators. Bees, butterflies, and even hummingbirds love them. I've seen more life in my garden just from adding a single pot of cosmos. So if you want something easy, elegant, and perfect for that wildflower cottage feel, cosmos are a great way to wrap up your container garden lineup. So there you go. 10 beautiful, easy-to-grow flowers that are perfect for pots, planters, and containers of all kinds. Whether you're working with a small balcony or just want to add some color to your patio or doorstep, these flowers are a great way to start. I hope this helped you choose a few new blooms to try this season. Let me know in the comments which one you're excited to plant, or if you have any favorites that I missed. And if you enjoyed this, please give it a like, and don't forget to subscribe for more gardening tips, plant care, and flower fun. Thanks for watching, and happy planting!
We're seeing a noticeable shift in consumer preferences across several sectors. What seems to be driving this change?
It appears to be a combination of factors, including greater awareness of sustainability issues and a growing demand for personalized experiences.